Well, hello and welcome to Outdoor Oklahoma. I'm Todd Craighead. Fall ushers in a lot of great Oklahoma traditions for the sportsman. It's the beginning of many hunting seasons, fishing picks back up, and for us around our office, fall means it's Wildlife Expo time. A little later, we're going to share with you some of our favorite clips from past expos. But first, it always amazes me still just how versatile cooking in a Dutch oven can be. Our resident expert, Luan Waters, has shared several recipes with us recently, and she's back at it today making another delicious meal in her Dutch oven.
While you've got your turkey waiting for it to come to a boil, you can go ahead and melt the butter that you're going to use for the sauce. And you can use these wire racks on top of your charcoal chimney to make it like a burner on your stove. But stay with the butter because it'll go from not melting to melted to, if it gets too hot, it will catch on fire, and you don't want that to happen. So this heats up really fast with the amount of heat that's coming off of the charcoal underneath. And we can have the sauce started even while we're waiting for the turkey to boil. Well, we finally have, the turkey has been boiling long enough, should be done, so that we can go ahead and cut it into bite-sized pieces. And then while it cools a little, we will start working on the cheese sauce for the Turkey Tetrazzini. Now, one thought, especially if you are going to do this away from home and you're going to be on, say, a camping trip, you can cook the turkey at home and keep it in your ice chest and save yourself a lot of time of waiting for water to boil and to get the turkey done. And you want the turkey cut into about bite-sized pieces. And this is a great recipe if you want to use the whole turkey in here, or if you have leftovers. The perfect way to be able to use them. This is a great recipe to feed a large crowd, or to have plenty left over after you feed the family, and then can have good leftovers afterwards. In fact, when I was getting ingredients for this at my local grocer, and I mentioned the name of the recipe, and she said, "Oh, that's always what we have after Thanksgiving, to use the leftover bits of turkey," and that it's one of her favorite recipes. And I have to give credit to the friend that gave me this recipe, Polly James. She was my neighbor across the street when we used to live in the little town of Morrison. And we moved away, and then they moved away, and she and her husband live at Chandler now, but she was luckily willing to share this recipe because it's always been a hit anytime I've cooked it for anyone. Now, this amount of turkey is a single breast plus 2 tenderloins. So you can get an idea if you were using a whole turkey or 2 chickens, as the recipe even says, that the amount of people that you'd be able to feed. So we'll set this off to the side and we'll start mixing up the sauce. So while we're working on the sauce, we'll go ahead and put our spaghetti in. Now, we've kept the water that we boil the turkey in so that you're going to be adding that flavor to the pasta. And the recipe calls for using a pound of pasta. Well, I had thought I might use gluten-free pasta this time, and of course it comes in 12-ounce boxes. So that's why I am using both part of another box as well as this one. Now, I like to go ahead and break the spaghetti into smaller pieces. And we'll probably even add still a little bit more water to make sure we've got plenty for this to boil properly. And if you'd need to in a camping situation, you could even pre-cook pasta, and sometimes using the shorter pastas, almost like a elbow macaroni approach, might work better to even be able to pre-cook that and then just be able to warm it before you add it to everything else. But we'll get this down into the water, add a little bit more water to it, and then let that cook the length of time that it needs to. I'm going to add some hot coals, get that back up to a good boil. Some people might think that these coals look like they'd still be putting off a lot of heat, but when you tap them and see how much ash falls off of them, to realize there's still hot coals in there. You definitely get burned, but it's not putting out as much heat as what a full briquette would. So we'll get some fresh coals in underneath and then reset our little grate to get the water back up to a good boil. I had a friend that gave me this grate. The expanded metal part will pop off, so you can actually use it as a trivet, though you could leave that on it and use that as well. But it's been a lot more handy than I had initially even thought that it would be. So we'll let that come to a boil and keep track of the time a little bit on that. So now for the cheese sauce. This is not a dietetic dish. I will guarantee that. We have a half a pound, 2 sticks of butter melted in the pot. We're going to add flour, and since I'm already using gluten-free pasta, I'm going to use almond flour, or you could use other gluten-free flours, and mix this with the melted butter. This is really primarily just to be a thickening agent for the sauce. And stir that in. And once that's pretty well smoothed in, then we'll use a quart of milk, and I figured we've got 16 ounces of cheese and half a pound of butter. We might as well use whole milk. There's some recipes you just don't want to skimp on the fat. Now I've got that mixed, but now at this point is when I'll bring this back up to heat before I add the cheese. So now again, using the grate on top of the charcoal chimney, it's going to work just like a burner would on your stove at home. You do want to stay with this so that you don't scorch the milk, but you want to get it nice and hot where everything's going to blend well before you mix the cheese in. Now the recipe calls for American cheese and Longhorn. And I have to admit, for years I've used Longhorn and not really ever paid any attention to. It's not actually a type of cheese, it's more how it was molded. And so Longhorn is Colby cheese, which is a really mild cheddar. It's considered a semi-hard cheese. It's amazing what you can learn on the internet. And but you'll want a block of American cheese because you want to grate it, and you also grate the Colby, but it's referred to as Colby Longhorn style. But if you can't find that, just anything labeled as a Colby cheese, you might even decide you'd like to use a Monterey Jack cheese to have a completely white sauce. But the American cheese really, both of these are cheeses that melt well, and so really add for the sauce. We can probably set this off the fire and check our pasta. Yeah, it's doing well. Yeah, I don't use them very often, but for a dish like this turkey tetrazzini, to get a disposable foil liner, you'll thank yourself afterward for the cleanup. So we've mixed our cheese sauce. We can now add the cut up bell pepper to it. Keep stirring that. And again, if you did want to add onion, this would be when that would be added. We've cooked the spaghetti, again, using the broth that we had left over. And we will probably pour the cheese sauce in here to be able to stir easier without potentially tearing, though I don't think it would tear, the foil liner. Get the last of the cheese out of there. Stir this, and now's when we can go ahead and add the sliced mushrooms. And then to stir those in. Now at this point is when we'll go ahead and pour it into the foil liner. And this is then when we're using our Dutch oven as actually our oven, not just a cooking pot, since we've got the liner in it. You want to keep it down low to the sauce so you don't splash it on yourself because it is pretty hot. And then we can gently add the cut up turkey. Now if you're doing this recipe at home, at this point's when it's going to go into your oven. And we'll bake this for about 45 minutes. And at this point is where we'll prep our coals. Now, again, there is a formula to how many coals. This is supposed to bake at 350 degrees. You double the size of the diameter of your oven. Again, this one's a 14. And when you double that, then for 28 pieces of charcoal, total would give you a 350 degree oven. So to make it easier, we're going to pour all of these coals out. The ones that aren't lit well enough will scoot off to the side and still be able to use them later. But we can start with these others that are already putting off a lot of heat. And you want more heat on top than underneath because your likelihood to burn anything is going to be on the bottom. And you want to use full-size coals, not small ones when you're doing this counting, because the smaller coals are not putting out the same amount of heat. They've already burned up enough that they're not as hot. And that's putting off enough heat. I am going to put on this other fire glove. Now instead of 14 underneath and 14 on top, we'll have 11 underneath and 17 on top. And you want them spaced about as evenly as you possibly can. I'm getting these others scooted off to the side where they'll be easier for me to get to once I scoot the oven over here on top of the coals. Now for 45 minutes, these coals would probably still keep putting out enough heat since they're new, fresh coals. But with whatever amount of wind or breeze that you might have, can make a difference in that, because wind will cause you more problems on how things will, especially for baking, than what the air temperature might possibly be. So at about 20 minutes into this cooking process, we will want to double check and make sure that the coals are still burning hot enough. Might need to replace some coals, add some more to keep that 350 degree oven. And now we'll have 17 on top And usually I don't start counting until I pretty much have coals all the way around the edge. Then I'll count and see how much I need, and then occasionally I may need to add a coal on either side. So, and as you would maybe decide that you needed to add additional coals, it's always a better bet add additional on top, and maybe one or two underneath, but don't get carried away with adding heat underneath. You're much better to have that heat be on top of the oven, again, so you don't burn the bottom of whatever it is that you're cooking. And you want your coals spaced as evenly as you can around so you don't end up with a hot spot, one particular place. Now, since this is baking and we've got a little bit of a breeze today, probably every 3 to 5 minutes, I'll pick up the pot and give it a quarter turn so that whatever direction the breeze is coming from doesn't keep that side from not cooking as thoroughly as it does on the downhill side. And then you check your watch for 45 minutes, and then when you get to sample a really good dish. All right, we'll check and see how the turkey tetrazzini is cooking. It's getting there. It's probably got about another 10 to 15 minutes to cook, and I've been turning the pot probably about every 5 minutes or so. I added a few more coals on top since they'd burned down some. And if you heard that thunk sound, that's a way of knowing that your lid has set properly so that you're not having heat escape. The turkey tetrazzini is done. We've set it off the coals, not taken all the coals off the lid, but enough that it would cool a little. And so now you'll get to see a finished product. Spaghetti and lots of wonderful cheese and wild turkey. What better meal would you want besides this? Again, cleanup will be easier because of having the foil liner. And if you're needing to clean up immediately after you've served everyone, go back and take the coals off of your lid into your fire pan or onto your cooking table so that the lid can start to cool down for when you're ready to then wash everything to store it away. But have fun eating a wonderful outdoor meal.
I supplied the wild turkey for Luan's recipe that day, so I guess you could say that I had a hand in making that delicious meal. Actually, I can't take any credit, but it was easy enough that I think even I could do it. You know, the Dutch oven cooking area is always one of the most popular venues every year at our Wildlife Expo. And so now we're going to take a look and see what else makes the Wildlife Expo such a huge success.
Well, obviously by doing the demonstration over here, they're teaching people about Dutch ovens and how to use them and how versatile they are, they will last forever. They get passed down from generation to generation, and it's a lost art, and we just want to reintroduce that art so that we get some kids interested in it, and it carries on for another 100 years or so.
Oh, I think it's great. We've had a good time, enjoyed the weekend, fantastic for the children.
How many years have you been doing this?
This is my first year.
It's your first year. Wow, I bet you're having fun.
I love it. I think it's great.
Served at least 4,000 samples. We had 9,800 students come through here. That didn't count the adults, and so we were very, very busy seeing all the little kiddos come through. It was exciting. I'm an educator. I teach 7th grade science in Ponca City at West Middle School, and we had our first group of West Middle School students come through yesterday. So it was really great to see some of my own school.
So what have you got going on in there?
There's some chopped ham, 2 different kinds of cheese. There's an Italian cheese and then a cheddar cheese, and cream cheese in here, and some Tony Chachere's. There's Chachere's in the bread and Chachere's in here both. And then we have one of our game wardens that doesn't like green vegetables of some sort. So I have green onions to put in. One batch is going to have green onions, one isn't. And then I'll roll this up.
So you cook to order?
Yes. I'll roll this up like you would a cinnamon roll.
Oh, okay.
And then I cut it and you just twist it over, and then I'll put it in a circle in the pan. And we make the Dutch oven act like a bundt cake pan.
Oh.
I would put a pan in the middle of it, a hole, so that it can bake around it. And it just, I mean, it looks kind of braided when it, but you know, when it rises.
So it's real pretty, I bet.
It is pretty. It is.
Well, looks good. I'll have to come back and
real
try
yummy.
it. Wow, what all can you do? I mean, you guys seem to do a lot of pastry type things.
Anything, absolutely anything you do in your oven or on top of your stove, we can do in our Dutch oven.
Wow, so it's very versatile.
We've had people that have said, oh, you can't do such and such. One person on the internet said you can't do a souffle. You can do a souffle.
Wow.
The one that I was challenged down here 3 or 4 years ago, they said you can't do a coconut cream pie. Yeah, go ask Tracy Daniels. He gets one every year down here for his
This is
birthday.
Jay Harvey at the Oklahoma Department of Wildlife Expo here at Lazy E Arena, and we're going to go do some jaywalking and talk to some of the folks. What's your name?
Faith.
Faith? Is that your
Yeah.
first kid fish?
No.
You got a lot of them? So what all else have you done at the expo besides fish?
All the things over it.
Have you there? So what are you going to do with that fish? You going to let him go? You going to give him a kiss first? If you give him a kiss, he'll grow a whole lot faster. Did you not know that? What are we doing here at the expo?
Well, we're letting kids ride mountain bikes, and we're letting kids get a general idea of what it's like.
Well, here comes one in.
You see them coming in, and they're just loving it.
So how long is the course here?
The course is about a quarter mile. It's taking most people 2.5, 3 minutes to go around it.
Yeah, they get to take one lap.
One lap.
Been pretty busy all day.
These things have not stood still all day.
Heck yeah? Really? So what are you doing here at the expo?
Well, just to see most of the fun games and everything.
What all have you done?
Well, we went down there to the clay pigeon shotgun, and we've I think we've done the knocking down the ducks down there.
Oh, the goose knocking?
Yeah.
What are you doing here anyway?
Building birdhouses. You take the sides, and then you put the front on it, and then the roof, ooh, and then the floor, and then the hole. And then you take it over the drill press, and they put you a hole in it.
And you have it all screwed together and it's ready to hang and ready to put a bluebird in.
Yeah. Well, the bluebird has to find it.
Well,
We don't
yeah.
put them in it.
Oh, it doesn't come with a bluebird?
No, it doesn't come with a bluebird.
Well, what's up with that? How are y'all today?
Good.
So what all y'all have been doing at the Wildlife Expo?
Shooting things.
Been shooting all the archery?
Yeah.
Have you?
And the guns.
Bow fishing?
Shotgun.
And
Archery.
Really? Where y'all from?
Miami, Oklahoma.
Miami, Oklahoma. I heard they have something up there called a paddlefish.
Yeah.
What do they do with paddlefish?
I don't know.
Did you see one?
the eggs.
They like the eggs? Like scrambled eggs?
No, like to
No?
fish with.
Oh, they fish with them?
They get the eggs and then they fish with.
They get the eggs and then fish with them.
Yeah.
Did you know people actually get those eggs and eat them? They make something called caviar. Did you get to do everything while you were here?
Well, not everything, but I sure am having a heck of a time. Stuff. Yeah.
All right.
Gotta do almost everything.
So you think you guys might want to come back to the Wildlife Expo next year?
Heck yeah.
Really? Man, that's
came
3
2
heck
years in a
yeahs.
row.
You are serious about this, aren't you?
Atlatau?
Atlatau? How about addle-addle?
Addle-addle.
Addle-addle is a primitive weapon that
That'd
was
work.
precursor to the bow and arrow. It went from the spear to the addle-addle and then to bows and arrows. Are you going to try it or just watch it?
Still debating.
Still debating?
If the camera's here, probably just watch.
Okay, well, we'll do what we can there. So how many folks is in your group?
3.
3. You and
My husband and daughter.
daughter. How old's your daughter?
She is 6.
Is she enjoying everything here?
Oh, she's having a
Is there
blast.
plenty of activities at the Wildlife Expo for a 6-year-old?
Oh, yes. From the shuttle ride in,
Right.
we're riding it in, and she says, this is so fun.
Great.
So-
Well, what about for mom and dad? Plenty to do?
Absolutely plenty to do. We take turns waiting in line, and the other one goes off to do stuff, and it's her turn now, so excuse me.
Okay, well, have a good day. Sir, hold on to that.
The Wildlife Expo has easily become the crown jewel of our agency. I mean, really nowhere else can a family pack in so much fun into one day and it all be completely free. We hope that you'll plan to join us every year out at the Lazy E. For all of us at your Wildlife Department, I'm Todd Craighead, and we'll see you right here next time on Outdoor Oklahoma.